Just gonna turn the camera so you can properly see Bucky, because I feel like she wants to be in here. Hi everyone, my name is Amber, this is Bucky, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about my TBR pile and how I'm doing with stretch, whittling it down. I turned it so you could be on the camera. Do you want to see? Look. Do you want to see? So towards the beginning of the year, I think it was early February, I ended up doing a video on the state of my TBR pile, and I was talking about how I'm not really stressed out about how many physical TBR books that I have, but I would like to make a conscious effort to whittle through them and read more of them, because previously I haven't really been focusing on my TBR books. I've been buying quite a few, and I certainly bought a lot in the past, but I don't buy as many now. And I was tending to focus on newer releases and advanced readers copies rather than the books that I had bought and was hopefully going to enjoy. So I made a conscious effort at the start of this year to start focusing on those a bit more. So I was doing a few things. First of all, I wanted to purchase books more consciously. I wanted to think about them more. I wanted to buy ones that I was definitely going to read soon. I wanted to read books that I was sure I was going to like, not just ones that were recommended to me and they sounded okay, but probably more of a 3-star read than a 4 or 5-star read. And I also have a sort of TBR challenge going on. So for every 3 books that I read from my TBR, I'm allowed to purchase 1 book. I was also trying to choose my TBR books using a sort of theme each month. So in February, I think I was reading books with only white covers, and I chose 3 of those to try to get through in the month. I was allowed to swap them out, and I was allowed to add more to that pile, not just 3, but they had to have white covers, and that challenge was really helping. So now that it's May, I just wanted to give an update on how I'm doing, how things are progressing, if I'm going to continue along doing these goals, because I like talking to you all and I think it will help hold me accountable. So like I said, I'm not really stressed about this. It's just a casual sort of goal that I want to do. It's something that I know that I will enjoy doing, because I know that I've got some really good books on my bookshelf that I have been meaning to read. So let's start by going through those goals really quickly. I will give you a TBR number at some point in this video, so stay tuned for that, but let's talk about those goals and how my sort of challenges are actually going. So reading 3 books and then buying 1, that's not going so well, because some months have more new releases than others that I am interested in. It's just going horribly. It was going quite well up until mid-February, early March, and then there were a bunch of books that I really wanted to read, so I bought them. In April, there were a ton of books on sale, so I bought those. And then also, bookshops reopened. I got very excited and I was able to go to the charity shop and I got a bunch of books there. And like I said, I'm not stressing about it, but it is a shame that I didn't manage to keep that up. So I think going into mid-May, early June, I'm going to bring that back and only buy 1 book for every 3 TBR books that I read. For my TBR challenge, where I choose a theme and try to pick out 3 books from my TBR for it, that's not going so well, just because for the past couple of months I've been doing readathons, and for those readathons obviously I have to choose prompts most of the time, and so I haven't been able to necessarily pick a certain theme like I did before, like choosing books with only white covers, because the prompts are kind of all over the place. I'm taking part in so many different readathons, especially at the moment in May, that I need to choose all different kinds of books. So that's fine. I'm still managing to choose books from my TBR pile for those readathons. I'm managing to fit the prompts, but it's not a certain theme like I wanted it to be. I don't know when I'm going to be able to bring the themes back, probably sometime in July or August, when I don't really have many readathons going on, but at the moment I'm not really doing that. As for purchasing books more consciously, again, up until April I definitely was. April I kind of got carried away in the charity shops because they were open, and honestly I was just excited. But I am definitely doing better at buying books that I think I'm definitely going to enjoy and I'm definitely going to give 4 or 5 stars. So overall that is going quite well. Because it's going quite well and I'm managing to whittle down my TBR, I am very excited to share the number with you and show you how my TBR is going down. So at the beginning of this sort of challenge, at the beginning of the year, my physical TBR was at 240 books, and now in May 2021 my TBR is at 240 books. So there is a reason for this. I promise it's not just my book purchasing. I'm going to go into the statistics in a second, but I just wanted to point out that I mentioned in my other video that I used to live with my granddad, and I had a bunch of books over there that I couldn't bring with me when I first moved into a flat with my partner. Now we're in this house, so I have tons of space, but my books are still at my granddad's. So I have been slowly bringing books from my granddad's over to here, and those books previously weren't counted on my TBR numbers because they weren't here for me to count. I couldn't go over to his house because of the pandemic, and now a bunch of them are. I still don't have all of them here. I've still got probably 100 books at his house at least, but I've brought a few books over here for me to read. But I have been clearing shelf space for those books. So I cleared an entire length of a bookshelf, which I am so proud of myself for doing, because that was one of my goals. I wanted to clear some space on my TBR shelf. That was the whole point of me doing this, because I wanted to read books that I already owned, and also I was running out of space for new books. So I managed to clear a shelf, and I'm so pleased with that, and now I've got space for more. So I brought some more books over from my granddad's. I did buy a few books as well, and I do have some stats here in case you want some stats. So according to my spreadsheet, since the start of the year, I have purchased or acquired 18 books, and I really don't think that's that bad. I think that's really good. That's almost 3 books a month-ish. And this also isn't including advanced readers copies, which I didn't have many of in the first place because I don't mind publishers sending me books. These are just books that I purchased myself. Also, according to my spreadsheet, I read 66 books this year so far at the time of recording this, and 28 of those books have been ones that I already owned. This is also including DNFs. I don't know if I've mentioned that. I'm including DNFs in these numbers because I'm not going to read those books, and they're going to be out of my house, and there's going to be shelf space where they previously were. So I'm really pleased with that. That's obviously almost 50% of the books that I am reading are coming from my physical TBR, which is fantastic. I'm hoping to get it over 50% later on this year, but at the moment I've got quite a few e-arcs to get through, and while I am now requesting fewer books on NetGalley, I've still got a bit of a backlog to get to, so I still need to focus on my e-galleys, but at the same time I think 50% will be achievable, and I can definitely keep focusing on my TBR books. Also, according to my spreadsheet, I have read 44% of the books that I have acquired this year, not including advanced readers copies. So I've read nearly half of the 18 books that I have bought this year. I definitely want to get that number up. I think I can probably make it to 100%, and that's definitely going to be a goal of mine to do, because I think it makes sense for me to read the books while I'm excited for them, because that's how I got into this situation in the first place. I kept buying books and I didn't read them soon enough, and then the hype sort of just left me, and other booktubers were telling me that they were bad books or they weren't as good as everyone was saying they were in the beginning. So I think it would be a good idea for me to read books as soon as I acquire them. So I'm doing really well with that so far. I've got a pile of books at the moment which are just the books that I bought this year, and I also have a spreadsheet going on so I can see which ones I have read and haven't read, and I tick them off when I have read them. I just quickly wanted to mention as well that according to an app that I have, Handy Library, which I haven't been updating since the start of the year, but I probably should. It was originally at 206 books, but that wasn't entirely accurate, and now it's down to 192. So even though those numbers aren't accurate, they are going down, and I think that means that I'm also doing a good job, or an okay job at least. So all in all, I do think that my TBR pile is reducing, considering I cleared an entire shelf worth of space. Even though the number is still at 240, that's because I'm bringing books over from my granddad's and trying to get through those as well, so they don't just stay sat there for years and years again. Something that I am noticing is that I am DNFing books more than I normally would, to be honest, if I was only reading newer releases. And I think that's because the books that I bought 10 years ago just aren't the same kinds of books that I would read now. I think this is partly because the hype for them has passed, it's partly because my reading tastes have changed, and it's partly because some of them are just things that I've read before but just in other works, so they're not like the most unique books anymore, even though they might have been at the time. I think my reading tastes have changed quite drastically from 10 years ago, and so I'm not quite as interested in the books that I picked up then as I would have been if I had read them straight away, which is why it's so important for me to read books that I'm actually hauling this year. A really good example of this is Ruby Red by Kirsten Gear. I purchased this not long after I started booktubing, probably just a couple of months in, and I was so excited to read it, but I didn't. And all of my friends, they gave it 5 stars at the time, back in 2010, 2011, and the hype for this one was enormous. But I think nowadays, if it came out now, it wouldn't be that good. And I only gave it 2.5 to 3 stars when I read it last month, because it just wasn't that great. It was generic YA. The main character had no personality. Nowadays, female main characters in books have so much going for them, and I was just reminded while reading Ruby Red that that wasn't always the case. I think I probably would have loved it if I had read it at the time when I was 17, 18, but now that I'm 28, I didn't at all. So in conclusion, I think I'm doing really well. I don't know if this is just me being like falsely positive, but I think I'm happy with where I'm at, which is the main thing. I'm really pleased that I'm reading more books from my backlog. I'm getting through a lot of books. I'm clearing shelf space as well, which seeing that physically clear out and seeing the space appear on my bookshelf as I shuffle books around is just such a good feeling. So I'm definitely planning on carrying on with this challenge or this project in the coming year. I'm hoping to do more TBR check-in videos as well. I promise I will do a spreadsheet and I will keep proper track of with them, and I will let you know actual numbers so we can get a little bit more into the nitty-gritty of it. But at the moment I'm pleased with knowing that my TBR is around 240 and it is going down. I do have quite a few TBR books that I'm planning on reading very soon. I just wanted to quickly tell you about them just in case you're an old school booktuber or an old school reader and you remember any of these YA books that came out years ago and got so much hype I still haven't read. So the first one is Ashes. This is a post-apocalyptic book, I think. It should be a really fast read. Kat from Little Book Owl actually sent this to me as a random act of kindness, which used to be a thing that book bloggers did, and I really wish would come back because it was adorable. I have We Hunt the Flame, An Ember in the Ashes, which I'm reading this month, Silo, which again I think is a dystopian book, and I love the cover of this one. I don't know why I haven't read it yet, but I think I burnt out on dystopia, to be honest. The Valiant, which is historical, I think, about a gladiator. Gideon the Ninth, which isn't that old, but it's older. And Reign of the Fallen, which I got recently, but I have been meaning to read for years. So that is the state of my TBR pile. I don't know how you guys are going to feel about this. I don't know if you guys are going to judge me. I know that I tweeted recently because I saw that Reddit was talking about how big their physical TBR pile was. And a lot of people on there were saying, oh, it's too big, it's at 45 books. And I was just kind of like, oh, is that too big? But I think that everyone has different views on this and different preferences. I personally love having a bigger TBR library because that means I've got so many choices. Saying that now, knowing that I've neglected my TBR books for so long in favour of newer books, sounds a bit silly to me, which is why I'm glad that I'm doing this TBR project, because I like having the options there. So why aren't I focusing on them and choosing books from my TBR instead of just requesting books from NetGalley or the library or asking publishers for books or buying new books, you know what I mean. Let me know in the comments below what your TBR pile is standing at, whether that's physically or digitally or both. I'm not even going to go into my digital TBR because that doesn't really bother me as much because it's kind of invisible. I've got most of those books for quite cheap. I'm definitely not running out of Kindle space anytime soon. I'm also not going to really go into my want to read on Goodreads or Storygraph just because that's not really a TBR for me. That's kind of just a way that I track which books I could be interested in the future and which ones I could be adding to my TBR pile. So that's how it's going for me. Let me know how your goals are going, whether it's TBR related or not, in the comments below, and I'll speak to you all in my next video. Bye!